Okay, welcome everybody to our webinar today, and I'm hoping that the next hour of the time you're going to invest will get you to think differently about some of the things that might have been holding you back. So I've got, there's down the bottom here, there's a place for you to put in any chat. If you have any questions or anything, I will try and keep an eye on them, but it's hard to do that. But hopefully, if there's time at the end, we will have some time for some questions at the end. So welcome to those that have joined, and I can see some familiar faces there, so welcome everyone, and hopefully we will have some fun. And we will join. We've got some hi from Nicole. Welcome, Nicole. So I will start my slideshow from the beginning, and we've got a lot to go through. So hopefully we will. Yep. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'm going to share my screen now, and then we will get started. So share my screen. I'm going to share this screen and we will get started. So this is all about eliminating procrastination. Now, procrastination is something that we all experience. So what I'm going to do is give you a bit more understanding of how procrastination actually occurs, and also some tips on how we can actually, avoid it, or a few sort of tools that you might be able to use so that you're actually, going to be able to use some of these tools to stop procrastinating or reduce procrastination. So when we look at procrastination, and we look at it, what we're looking at saying, is this something that is affecting you in your life or not? Because whether you're a procrastinator or not, or whether you have somebody that you love in your life that's a procrastinator, really it's about looking at saying, okay, we really want to make sure that it's something that doesn't affect them. So really, when we look at it, it's the gap between your intention of what you actually intend on doing, and the gap between the action that you're actually doing. And that's what procrastination is all about, because you identify it as saying, okay, there's a gap between what I actually are intending on doing and what action I actually am doing. So that's what we're talking about when we look at procrastination. So we're looking at saying, okay, we want to make that gap as little as possible. So how do we do that? Let's get started here. So first of all, when we look at saying we're going to define procrastination, we're defining procrastination. That's what we're starting off with. It's the action of delaying or postponing or avoiding a task. We're all guilty of procrastinating at some point in our life. Everyone puts off unpleasant tasks, but it's when problems arise, it's when problems begin to arise when they're impacting your life negatively. For example, sometimes chronic procrastinators, what happens is it actually starts to affect their health. So what we're wanting to do is make sure that we're aware of the signs, aware of some of the common reasons for procrastination, so that we don't actually have it affecting our life. That's what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to make sure that it doesn't actually affect us, so that it's something that we're fully aware of. Now, when we're looking at this, according to research, 20% of the population are considered true procrastinators. And I'm talking about, these are chronic procrastinators. These are people who often, they might suffer from broken relationships, they might suffer from lost jobs, deflated dreams, financial disarray, self-esteem issues. Now, these are serious issues. And whilst putting off, some small tasks are not a problem, but if they're starting to affect you, like broken marriages, like lost jobs, things like this, it's really impacting your life. And that's why research has shown that 20% of people are considered true chronic procrastinators. So, when we look at that, and, the thing is, if to give you an example in real life, I'll stop sharing so I can look at you in the face. I've known many people that have procrastinated so much so about a relationship, they've had to have the conversation that they needed to have. It might be someone that they've worked with, it might be their boss, it might be their business partner, whoever it is, they've procrastinated having that serious conversation. And what's happened is the marriage or the work relationship or the business relationship has broken down because they've let it go so far that they haven't had that crucial conversation. So when we're looking at the definition of a chronic procrastinator, these are some of the effects that can actually occur in your life from being that chronic procrastinator, from procrastinating to potentially, say I was just talking in a meeting with a company, and I was talking to the business development, the BDM, and they were talking about procrastination. Hopefully they might be on the call. Now, procrastinating on picking up the phone to follow up on a lead, to follow up on a proposal. Many times people have procrastinated on following up on proposals, or ringing up that team member that really needed some help, but they were so scared of ringing them up that they procrastinated that it was too late. So these are the effects that I'm talking about with chronic procrastinators. Now, it might not be you, but you might know someone that is in your team that is a chronic procrastinator, and it is affecting them adversely. So by getting very clear on how it's affecting them, you might be able to help them to change that. So that's the definition. I will share my screen again and get back to my slides. But I just wanted to get up close and personal in relation to that, because it has, really, dire effects if people procrastinate for a long time about things that are really, really important. So when we are looking at saying, okay, what are these telltale signs? What are the telltale signs of someone who is a chronic procrastinator? So here's the common list of telltale signs of someone who may be. So one of the first things is they have difficulty coping with change or transition. Now, I think that sounds like me. I had difficulty moving from the office to my house. So difficulty coping with change and transition. Someone who's chronically late, someone who actually self-sabotages and is chronically late all the time, has a never-ending to-do list. The to-do list is never, ever finished. It's always keeping on going, keeping on going, keeping on going. The other one is, the other telltale sign is they focus on non-essential work instead of what really needs to get done. So, in relation, to that, have you ever, and I know I have you ever found you have a really big rock you've got to do, you really need to get something done, and then you find, oh, just, waste some time cleaning out my drawer or something before I start that big rock. That's the classic non-essential work item instead of getting done what needs to get done. And, I'll admit that's definitely me. Oh, I need to start this task. I'll just make a cup of tea first. So that's a chronic behavior of someone that is, sorry, not a chronic, a classic behavior of someone who is a procrastinator. So when we're looking at this, we want to say, I'll go back to my screen again. So when we look at this, these are some of the telltale signs. If you don't have them, or if you know somebody in your team that does, it's a good idea to bring their attention to this, because you can probably help them identify them and mentor them through them. So when we look at this, we say, okay, how do we overcome it? So overcoming procrastination, there's a lot of tongue twisters here. It can be especially challenging because we have many different reasons to procrastinate. There's lots of different reasons. So and they go from one end of the spectrum to the other. Now, one of the common reasons that people procrastinate, when we look at that, is in relation to perfectionism. Often it's about the fear of being a perfectionist. So often, sometimes they fear making mistakes, and that's real to them. And so what it can do, it can cause people to put off important obligations for another day because they're too frightened of actually making a mistake, and they're too frightened of it not being perfect. So perfectionism, you know, sometimes people, and I did a workshop on perfectionism a while ago, but sometimes people think it's a really good quality. However, sometimes it can be quite detrimental, because what happens is perfectionism can often make someone have such a high standard. Their standard is so high and so unrealistic that what happens is they procrastinate and put off doing whatever it is that they want to do, because their standards are so very, very high, and they never end up achieving it. So in relation to yourself, and if you feel that you do have some of these perfectionism traits that might be stopping you, or that might be assisting in your procrastination, think of something that's, you know, a really big task that you might have been putting off for a really long time because you just don't think that you're going to do it as well as you could. And so maybe, you know, and for those of you that know me, I think most of you on the call know me. Most of you know I've been working on my book for probably 6-7 years. Now, I've definitely got a lot of perfectionism. In relation to that, I probably would have got it finished a lot earlier had I not have wanted to do that bit more research and that bit more creatively, positioning a sentence, or just get that diagram a little bit better, or just research that link a little bit more. And that is, you know, that's taken so long because of that trait that I have. So think about yourself, and is some of your causes of your procrastination, because I'm going through the causes, is one of your causes because of perfectionism or not? Do you have that thought of, I need to get it done perfectly, so I can't do it perfectly, so I'm just going to put it off? So have a think about that. So the other one, when we look at that, is fear. Fear is another cause of procrastination. So fear is deeply rooted cause of procrastination, from the fear of failure to the fear of success. And fear can often cripple people to a halt. They like when I talked about picking up the phone, to have that telephone conversation, to have that hard conversation with somebody. You know, I've had a lot of people pass away in my life, and you know, when you have people close to you that pass away, you know, death is a subject that people don't talk about. And so often people I know have thought, oh gosh, you know, I must pick up the phone and just ask, you know, how that person's going. But that fear has stopped them from picking up the phone. So they procrastinate. And then all of a sudden it's a month and you haven't spoken to your friend that you'd normally talk to every week, but because their mum passed away, you've procrastinated, and it's made it much worse. And it's that fear, the fear of, what do I say? The fear of, you know, how do I say it? Because I don't understand the emotions and I don't understand the situation. So the idea of failure can sometimes be very devastating for people. And so starting the project can be very difficult. It also stems from a view of failure as a final result rather than a stepping stone. So we're viewing failure as the end rather than a learning curve. Now, we don't learn unless we fail. The only way we learn is through failure. So if we're procrastinating about starting something because we're scared internally or subconsciously of failing, well, we're in effect actually stunting our learning because we're not actually trying. So failure is seen as a permanent stain on one's reputation, causing self-esteem to take a significant blow every time an objective hasn't been actually achieved. So there's a lot of pressure getting put on yourself for making that, whatever it is, to be super successful. But if you don't start, you won't learn what works, what doesn't work. You know, I love, you know, the light globe, you know, Alexander Bell, you know, 1,000 times he, you know, found out that wasn't how the light globe was made. Now, if he hadn't have failed those 1,000 times, we wouldn't be having light as we have it today. So fear of failure is one side. The flip side of many procrastinations is also failure is the fear of success. So that's the flip side of fear. So success can also create a lot of pressure with people. So what happens with that fear of failure and the fear of success? In the fear of success, they fear subconsciously that their expectations on them will be higher if they do succeed. And so the idea that people will demand more of them, what happens is sometimes it causes people to self-sabotage their success by procrastinating, because they think, oh gosh, you know, I'll have to do it this well every time, or I have to do it this fast every time. You know, I know myself, you know, when I used to do my triathlon days, I hated coming first because it would put so much pressure on me. I was much happier to come second, because then there was nowhere near as much pressure for next time. So when you're thinking about yourself or the people you love or some of the people in your team and how procrastination is turning up in their world or in your world, do you feel that fear of success or fear of failure may be one of their causes for them? Do you see them pulling back with trying too hard, or do you see them pulling back because you can see the fear of them having that conversation, the fear of them starting a project because they don't know how to do it? I mean, you know, I have challenges with learning new apps, and often I'll fear doing something because I don't know how to use the app. But if I just sat down for half an hour and worked out how to use the app, I'd be fine. But I might be scared of that. So is that the case with you or your team? So one of the other root causes of procrastination is lack of motivation. So lack of motivation. So motivation is related to expectations. Procrastinators often think they must be fully motivated to begin a task. Now, this is unrealistic. So in many cases, progress leads to motivation. I remember I used to have a big poster that said, motivation precedes action. I'll say that again, motivation precedes action. So you must start the action first, then the motivation comes. So often people think, and I've seen this happen so many times. I've heard people say, especially kids, oh, I'll start this, I'm just waiting to get motivation. I'm waiting to get my motivation. Well, hold on, motivation is not going to come and hit you. Action brings motivation on. You just need to start. And once you start, then the motivation starts to kick in because you're getting this feedback. You're getting more and more feedback. Oh, yes, I can do this. Yes, I've started. Yes, I'm on my way. It makes such a difference once you start. And people just have that flip the wrong way around. It's just that you must get started first. So when we're looking at saying that, I'll go back to my screen again. Okay, motivation is related to expectations as well. So what happens is sometimes people's expectations, and you know, I use myself as an example because I know myself more than I know other people, and I can speak about myself without you know, being detrimental to anyone else. So often I'll say, oh yes, I could do that, it will take me a couple of hours, and 5 hours later I'm still at the task. So when we're looking at our expectations and motivation, we need to be realistic with them. So that's another one of the causes of procrastination, is lack of motivation. So must get started first. really important. Another one is lack of interest. Lack of interest. Now, we're all guilty of delaying or avoiding tasks that we do not find appealing, that we don't like. However, if we all put off things that we don't want to do, nothing will ever get accomplished. So we must understand that there are things that we just have to do, that we might not be interested, that we might not like to do. It might be filing, it might be, the husband doesn't like changing the baby's nappies. It might be, maybe replying to emails or whatever. But sometimes, because you're not interested in a task, then sometimes that procrastination will set in. And and some of the things that that work for me, with tasks that I don't like doing, delegate them is one thing. So don't do them at all. Just delegate them to somebody else if you're not interested in some of the boring ones, or make them fun. Generally, with things that I procrastinate, that I would potentially procrastinate in, I'll make them fun for myself. So I might have a book going at the same time, or I might pick a really funky playlist I'll put on at the same time. Or I might say, I'll give myself a reward and say, right, you're not going to have lunch till you've done this boring job that you knew you had to do, then you can have lunch. So I might get excited about that. Or I might say, oh, I'm going to sit at the cafe. Sometimes, on a Friday, I might have a really, boring task that I've left till the week. But then I'll say, okay, I'm going to give myself a reward. I'm going to do this task in a really nice cafe. So if it's something that you do have lack of interest in, then if you overlay it with a filter of something that's fun, for me, it works to help actually get it done. So that's something that works with me. So that's another one of the traits, or another one of the causes of procrastination is lack of interest. Now, some of the things, so when we look at saying, okay, how are we actually going to, overcome this? Well, one of the things we look at is saying, let's get rid of all distractions. So if something's really important that needs to be done, we've got to look at saying, okay, let's get rid of distractions if something's important. Now, there was a book that I got all my clients to read, absolutely loved it. It's Mark, I think it's called Getting into the Go Zone. Oh gosh, I can't find it. I can't put my hand on it. I think the guy's name is Mark McGowan. He's from Melbourne. And if anyone's interested in the book, I can send them the details of it. But what he talks about is when there's a really big task that you really need to do, that you set up a go zone. And in that go zone, one of the keys to having a really effective go zone is getting rid of distractions. Get rid of them. So turn email off, turn social media off, turn everything off possible to stop distraction, because distraction is really one of the best tools to avoiding procrastination, because you won't get distracted by the little pop-up of Facebook or pop-up of an email. So turn it all off and just say, all right, I'm going to do it. Another one of the things that he has as one of his tips for his go zone is to actually pre-specify the time prior that you're going to do the go zone. So if you've got something that you've been procrastinating on, so, you might be, say it might be for me, I'm going to write a blog or write a part of an article or something, and I'll be procrastinating about it. So one of the ways to avoid this distraction is saying, okay, let's block that 2 hours in tomorrow from 7 till 9. You're better in the morning, 7 till 9, and just put that time in so it's predefined. I know what I'm going to do there. There's no way turning out. And then before I go into that go zone, I turn all the distractions off and just cut it all off, or put it away, put the phone away, put everything away, and then go and actually just do it. So some of the rules around getting in a go zone are turning off all the distractions, predefining what you're going to do in it. What is it that big rock you're being distracted from, that you're procrastinating from? Predetermine the time and whatever tools you need. So that's something that helps me
when I'm wanting to get rid of distractions. Sorry, I keep sharing the screen and flipping back because sometimes I think the slides can be a little bit boring sometimes. Now, another one is, you know, when we look at this, we look at saying, okay, you know, sometimes we have to have a change in our mindset. It's sometimes our mindset of just in that procrastination mindset, regardless of what it's caused from. If it's caused from fear of failure, fear of success, lack of motivation, you know, whatever it is that's causing you to do this procrastination, maybe it's a change in mindset that you need. Now, you know, the, you know, Carol Dweck's book, really fascinating book. It's called Mindset, the New Psychology of Success. Now, what she talks about is she talks about either having a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. So when we're talking about if we talk about a growth mindset, this is having the mindset of being open to learning, accepting challenges, accepting failure as a way of learning and growing forward, opposed to a fixed mindset. And a fixed mindset is someone who basically says, no, I'm a procrastinator, I find it hard to get started, or I'm not good at that, or I can't learn that, or I always make mistakes. So it's somebody who's basically their ability to grow and learn is hindered by the way their mindset is set. And if it's fixed in one place, that they're not good at time, they're not good at learning new things, they're not good at getting focused. Oh, I can't focus, I'm not good at that. That's rubbish. Everyone can learn to focus. Our brain is like a muscle. It's got neuron pathways that we can change and grow and learn. So I would urge you, if that is you, understand more about your mindset. Carol Dweck's book is fascinating for relationships, for work, for children, for parenting, and it teaches us about how we can change our mindset. And it's something that, and that's why it's called SET, it's something that we are brought up with. And your parents have either brought you up in a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, and your environment is the same. Are you with people who are fixed in their mindset or growing in their mindset? So when we're looking at saying, you know, I'm a procrastinator and I want to change it, it's important to change your mindset first and say, right, I'm ready to grow, I'm ready to change, and I'm gonna make that change, and actually go through that process. So when we're looking at that, Carol Dweck's examples in her books will give you a fantastic insight into how that can actually happen. So if fear is one of the things that is actually, you know, hindering you, if it's fear of failure or fear of success, I think fear is probably one of the most common reasons for procrastination. Face it. Face it. Face that fear. Face, you know, the actual, you know, behind the scenes of what's going on. Why is it that has been getting procrastinated over and over again? And often, you know, I'll have clients that they have procrastinated or put off something time and time again, and we really need to delve deep to find out why. So what is it that you're afraid of? If it's something that you've procrastinated, catching up with somebody, or asking your boss for a raise, or having a performance review with somebody, or stepping up in that strategy, or doing the cash flow projection because you know you need to, but you're too scared of it. Well, are you scared of what the outcome's going to be? You know, are you scared of what it's going to look like in 3 months? And it's much better to put your head in the sand. I met lots of people like that. So go deep. What is it that you're actually afraid of? What are you procrastinating from? What's the worst possible scenario? What's the worst thing that can happen? If you continue procrastinating, or if you don't procrastinate, if you go and do it. The other thing is, what could happen? These are some of the questions I'm wanting you to think about. What could happen if you kept ignoring this situation? If you kept procrastinating on whatever it is you're procrastinating on, or pick one instance, or it might be a loved one that you're listening in for to help. What could be the outcome if this was consistently ignored, if you procrastinated or if they procrastinated on this one particular thing? What could be the outcome? Now, sometimes I've found the reason why someone's procrastinated something is because they actually didn't really want it enough. So that's fine. That could be the outcome. The outcome is we've now got clarity that they didn't really want to do that anyway, that it wasn't really meant to happen anyway. I had that situation with a client that was always talking about, getting down to writing his book. Well, we realized he didn't really want to write one after all. So why am I also, think about why I'm putting off whatever it is you're putting off. Look back to the why, what you're afraid of, what you're fearful of, what the consequences of if you do it, and what are the consequences of if you don't do it. Now, another question to ask is, what will I gain in the long run by putting this off? What am I gaining from this? What's the payback for me? Is it confirmation that I'm a procrastinator? Is it confirmation that I'm not good at something? What is it? What is it that's putting you off? Now, are you also trying to convince yourself of something that is actually not true? Is there some untruths here that you haven't actually, looked at? If there is an outcome, right, can I handle the outcome? So if you're procrastinating about, say, one that's been on a lot of business owners' lips lately, if I'm procrastinating from doing my 3-month cash flow projection, is it because I don't know how to do it? Or is it because I'm scared of the outcome? Or is it I can't handle that outcome? What is it? So by understanding, asking yourself these questions and getting deeper into what is it that you're fearing, just facing that fear head on, you'll be able to unpick it and find out, well, is it because I don't know how to do Excel? Is it because I don't understand the financials? Or is it because I'm scared of that outcome? Or all of the above? So getting people to help, unpick this can also be very helpful. The other question to ask yourself, am I actually scared? Or was I told? Was I told from a young child that I wasn't good at this or something? Is it a real fear? Is there a real fear behind what I'm procrastinating about, or is it just made up in my head? So these are some questions to ask yourself, and I'm happy to send these questions to you if you're really wanting to delve deep. But I've got 10 questions here to ask yourself. Is that if there's something that you're constantly procrastinating on and you're wanting to break through it. So my suggestion is face that fear and break through it and pick it out and go right through it and smash it apart, and you'll just understand a lot more about what's behind it. So the other thing to look at is looking at saying, okay, that the to-do list that's growing, sometimes procrastinators, I mentioned this earlier, have big long to-do lists. We'll break them up into little deadlines and little tasks, and then arrange them in order. Now, I was on a Zoom session with a client the other day, and there was this list she had about 10 things that she wanted to get achieved, and I said, okay, so what's the top 2 for today? What's the top 2 for today that you really need to get done? And she picked 2, and I said, so how long are they going to take to get done? And she was like, but there's all these other things and everything else. I'm like, okay, well, let's just look at these top 2, how long they'll take to get done. And we worked out how much time she had. That's all she could get done. So we ended up the conversation with, okay, if these 2 get done, that's what success will look like today. And she agreed. So there was all that big, long, growing to-do list, all the things that were clouding her mind of 100 things to do, they were all gone. We had 2 things that had to be done, and we had time enough to do those 2 things. And we had an agreement that that was what success would be at the end of the day. So getting clear on deadlines and getting very specific of priorities will really help a lot to build confidence with actually breaking through the procrastination, because you've actually pulled out the list and said, only these 2 are really important. These are the deadlines for them. This is a priority. This is how much time I need to get them done. And then you don't have everything else being noisy in your mind. You just have these two things that need to be done. So getting that clear will help in a big way. The other thing, nothing fosters procrastination like very big, daunting projects. So to help with reducing the overwhelmingness is to break it down into tiny little baby steps. Break it down into really, really small steps. And then it just seems so much easier. You know, I had a task recently that I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? This is a massive, huge task. I was like, I've got the book and I've got to turn it into an audio book. How do I do that? Okay, that was very overwhelming for me and quite a good one to procrastinate on. But no, what we had to do is look at breaking it down into small tasks and say, okay, well, what's the first thing we need to do? Find out if there's any sound studios that are open, and then find out from the sound studios how long it would take to record a book of that many words. And then once we got clarity around that, then we looked at saying, okay, well, let's get the time in the calendar, let's book it. And slowly but surely, it was all broken up into little bits. But initially, I was quite paralyzed by the thought of, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? I have no idea of how that would happen. So if you've got something big that you're procrastinating on, break it up. Break it up into small, little, tiny, bite-sized little jobs. And then one of my keys is to put them in the calendar at the time when you know you can get them done. And then that just makes it so much easier. It just makes the overwhelmingness comes right down. It might be just make one phone call. It might be just get 3 quotes, but just getting progress, getting forward, that old saying, progress, what is it? Progress over perfection. It just makes all the difference. So breaking it down can reduce that procrastination. The other thing, when we're looking at this, distraction, getting rid of distractions is crucial. And we've talked about that before, but some of the tips that I've found helpful with getting rid of distractions is blocking off the internet is a big one. Turning off your phone is another big one. Or if you have a business, you might want to redirect your phone. Another one, I've found it very useful to have noise cancelling headphones. Putting noise cancelling headphones on makes a massive difference. If you do end up reading, getting into the Go Zone, the Mark McGowan book that I said, the guy from Melbourne, he talks about putting a sign on your actual door saying, I'm in a Go Zone from 10 till 12. Please do not enter unless, you know, it's an emergency. So some of the things, closing doors, you know, are a big one. And I know a lot of business owners and executives don't like closing doors, but if you have, and I've seen whole offices implement having 2-hour go zones to reduce the procrastination with tough jobs. And what happens is their culture around the business becomes one of accepting if someone's in a go zone and they've shut their door, or they're in a go zone with noise cancelling headphones on, that it's just part of them and their company being more productive. And I've seen production increase dramatically from people using these tips of reducing distraction, of having go zones, of having, you know, certain times when they go out. Like, for example, if you're wanting to do something, very creative, if you're wanting to do something really creative and you've got a big team or you've got a small team and you've got a project that you want to get done, getting out of your normal environment is a great tip for stopping procrastination. So, you know, we've had times when we've had to do planning meetings and we've said, hey, let's go and meet at Trigg Beach at the cafe there. We'll have the meeting there. Procrastination's gone. Lunch or breakfast is on the boss. Beautiful view on the ocean. Great blue sky thinking, really great creative, environment. You've got lots of fresh air. You've got lots of different things happening. So all of a sudden procrastination's gone because you've booked the time, you're going somewhere different, and you've committed with other people to do this particular project that needed to get done in that time. And we've gone and booked, boardrooms in different places or cafes or different locations. and it just stops all procrastination because you've booked and delegated that time to do it. So getting out of your normal environment can help dramatically. So moving along here, so there are some of the tips to remove distraction. I've got still quite a bit to get through here. Another tip that can help, and you've probably heard of that book, Eat the Frog, first, and that is do the hard stuff first. Now, and I mentioned this earlier, early morning, generally our brains function at optimal. So the most productive people agree that the first time they get the biggest, hardest thing done first, that's going to make things so much easier. So what happens if you've got something you've been procrastinating on and you say, right, I'm going to do it at the first thing in the morning, I'm going to do it here and start tackling it. What's going to happen is the rest of the day, you're going to be so fueled with endorphins of success that the whole day you'll have that feeling of accomplishing something. You'll have that feeling all day that you've achieved something that you've really been wanting to achieve for such a long time. So all day you'll be feeling like, yay, I rock, I've done that, I'm so excited. And it makes such a difference. I've got a client who said, okay, the hardest thing is to follow up on leads for the team. They find that really uncomfortable. They don't like picking up the phone. So what they had is they had a little note on their computer, and they had to do 5 calls in the morning before they did anything else because everyone procrastinated on doing these follow-up sales calls. But they realized that the increase in conversion rate was so high that it was imperative that they stopped procrastinating on these follow-up calls. And I think a lot of that stemmed from the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, of someone saying, no, we're not going to go with your company, we're going to go with someone else. So what they did instead was they said, okay, every day, 5 calls, that's it. We all have to do our 5 calls every single day before we start our job. So everyone had to tick off that they'd done their 5 calls. When they did, they rang a bell, and it was a bit of excitement. It was like, yay, 5 calls are done, fantastic. We're really excited because someone's achieved theirs. And then what happened is, as they started to get into the rhythm of everyone doing their 5 follow-up calls every morning, what happened was conversion rates started to go up. So what happens when conversion rates started to go up? Morale started to go up. And then sales went up because the atmosphere is more excited, the morale is feeling better. So just by saying, all right, we've got one thing here that everyone procrastinates on, which is following up quotes. All right, we've acknowledged that. So what we're going to do is make that the one thing that everyone does every morning. They do 5 phone calls every morning. So that's the antidote that we've implemented. But then the benefit from that was so amazing that the thing that everyone was scared of and putting off ended up flipping around and being the thing that impacted the rest of everyone's days, because it just changed the atmosphere. It gave everyone this boost of excitement, this sense of achievement, this sense of, yes, I've done my 5, ding-a-ling-ling, I'm excited, and yes, my sales are going up, and yes, my conversion rate's going up. So coming from that one thing of everyone procrastinating and the business owner hating the fact that no one followed up quick enough, it was flipped around to be something that brought everybody together because they faced it head on, because they saw the fear, they broke through it. So if that's the case in something in your business, you could turn around and make that be something that will be instrumental in impacting your business. So back to my slides, I digress. Okay, tackle the hard stuff. We've talked about that. So now, this is a good one. And this one is the 2-minute rule. It's a really good psychological trick. So, and it's a similar one to, when I'm talking about, get started, that action has to happen before we get motivation. The action happens first, and people always think it's the other way around. Well, it's not. But there's a great psychological trick. When faced with a task that you really don't want to do, you only think about doing it for 2 minutes or 120 seconds, because that becomes manageable. And there's also the 2-minute rule around things, if they can be done in 2 minutes, do them straight away. But focusing on 2-minute increments, it's much easier because your mind just thinks, okay, well, that's not very long. I can do it for 2 minutes. Now, once you've started a couple of 2 minutes, what happens is that motivation kicks in because you started. So once you've started, then you're starting to get that motivation and you're starting to get that feedback. So just think, okay, I'll get started for 2 minutes. You know, I'm a classical piano learner, learner being the key word. And, you know, one of my goals is to just spend 5 minutes on the piano. And it's called, I just have it in my calendar and it's take 5. Now, inevitably, if I spend 5 minutes on the piano, if I get there for 5 minutes, and I could change it to 2, but inevitably it turns out to be 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. Because once I'm in there, it's fine. It's the starting that's the problem. So if you start to think, oh, there's something I'm procrastinating about, well, I'll just start for 2 minutes. I'll just give it 2 minutes crack. And then once you started, see how you go. See if that feedback of rewarding yourself that you're actually started, that motivation kicking in, see if that keeps you going. So it's a bit of a trick. It's a psychological trick. The other one that is a really powerful tool, hold yourself accountable. It's a big one. And that's why, you know, someone like myself as a business coach is generally the number one thing people come back to me, you know, with saying the biggest benefit of having a business coach is the accountability, because it can be a huge motivator. Now, you know, I know myself, you know, personally, I like to run and exercise. If it's a rainy morning and I wake up and I've got an appointment to go running at 6 o'clock, if I was having an appointment with myself, I would have no problems with going back to sleep and saying, oh, it's a rainy, cold morning, I'm not running. But I have a running buddy, because there's no way I would let her down. There was no way I would just go, oh, no, I'm not, pardon me, I'm not going because it's raining. Because I have that accountability. I would never let somebody else down, never in a million years. But I don't have a problem with letting myself down. So the trick, one of the tricks or tools or tips or recommendations for procrastination is to find out, who would you not let down? Who would you rather not let down? Who would you value more than yourself in letting down? So if you've got something that you're procrastinating on, it might be exercise, it might be, you know, with your team projects or whatever, have your team hold you accountable. You know, say to them, we're going to have a team meeting once a week and I want you to help me be accountable to making sure it happens. Or, you know, when I had little kids, I used to have training programs that I would put on the fridge so that the kids would know when I was meant to be swimming and running and cycling. And if I wasn't there, they'd go, hey, you're meant to be training. Where are you? Why are you here? So who can you have to hold you accountable? Who have you got in your life that you would never, ever in a million years let down? Who do you have that you wouldn't want to let down? So it would be really good to have somebody that can hold you accountable, that is invested in the success of whatever it is that you're actually wanting to get achieved. So if it's to do with your partner, something that's to do with them, or if it's to do with work, something to do with a work person, or fitness, it might be, you know, someone who loves you. So look at saying, and, you know, even with health, you know, I've done, you know, plotted diaries and things like that with my fitness pal and shared it with friends. And that's great fun, knowing that your friend is looking at what you're eating. So there's no more sneaky chocolate bars, because you know that they're there looking at the same time. So have somebody hold you accountable, and whatever it is, if you can have them invested in the success, that will make it even more powerful, so that even though you might let yourself down and procrastinate till the cows come home, you don't want to let somebody else down. So that's you know, a great tip for stopping procrastination. The other one, no more excuses. no more excuses. We're all prone to procrastination because we're humans. But it's up to you to determine if your procrastination habits are actually getting in your way of you achieving goals, or if they're becoming harmful to your success. Now, yes, I've said, I'm happy to admit, you know, I procrastinate on many things because I'm human, but my procrastination is not hampering the areas of my life that mean something to me. My fitness gets done. I'm working on my projects. I prioritize my important people in the world. So yes, I do procrastinate because all of us do, but we're wanting to have a look and examine if it's time for us to say, all right, draw a line in the sand. Is this impacting my life? You know, is it impacting my health? Is it impacting my relationships? You know, is it time to say, right, no more excuses for it? So if you are having excuses, it's important to start to examine these excuses and look a bit deeper and say, okay, you know, is this procrastination really something that we need to really address right now or not? So draw the line and get rid of excuses. Next one here, putting this knowledge into practice. And it's really important when we learn new knowledge to put it into practice. And, you know, what we've gone through, you know, today is we've looked at identifying what is procrastination, difference between, you know, your action and your intention. Then we've looked at saying there's different causes of procrastination, whether it's fear, whether it's, you know, perfectionism, you know, whether it's your mindset, what is it? And then we've got one step further and said, okay, what are some tools? What are some of the things that we can do to actually stop this? We've looked at going through the fear, we've looked at allocating time, we've looked at breaking it up into little pieces, setting deadlines, having accountability partners, all the rest. So what we want to do is look at saying, okay, well, you know, let's say, what is one thing that you're procrastinating on that you've actually been putting off that you really want to get started on? So what I'm urging everyone to do now is to actually start to put it to practice. And if everyone can go into the chat and actually just type in one thing that you're actually putting off, that you're going to commit now to actually getting started on. Because what we've done is we've gone through and analysed, and you'll know by now, is this something that is causing, you know, a challenge in your life or not? So first step is to just decide what's one thing you're going to stop procrastinating on. So I want everyone to just write something. Someone said here, cold calling. Well done. That is such a great thing. So do it at the beginning of the day. Well done. I've got someone else here who has put reconnecting with existing team members. Yep, brilliant. Doing the hard stuff first. Brilliant. So we've got some really good things coming in there. So by actually identifying it and saying, right, this is it. I'm going to stop procrastinating on this. Getting accounts up to date. Fantastic. So, yep, tax, great one. Absolutely brilliant. That's something everyone procrastinates on. I just delegate that one. But yeah, it's a good one. So well done for those that have identified something that they're procrastinating on, because you've actually, you know, gone the next step and said, no, I'm going to do something about that. And actually, you know, write down that I'm going to do it. The other thing as well, which I just want to mention before we finish up, is that sometimes procrastination can be confused with laziness. It can be confused with laziness, but being lazy actually has nothing to do, most of the time, at the fundamental core of procrastination. So if you do have somebody that you find does procrastinate a lot and you confuse it with laziness, generally, most of the time, it's not laziness. Generally, it's because of, you know, they overthink things, they're wanting to get too many things done, etc. So just bear in mind some of the tips that I've gone through with you, and that laziness is generally not a cause. It's generally people want to actually accomplish more. So just the other thing as well is it is possible to break through this. Success is within everybody's reach. It is possible to change a mindset. It is possible to put strategies in place to achieve more, and to decide, I'm not a procrastinator anymore. I don't do that anymore. What I do is get very clear on what I want to achieve, put the time aside, learn how I'm going to actually, you know, what I need to get that done, and then go and get it achieved. So it's not something that's set. If you are a procrastinator, or if you have somebody in your team that is a procrastinator, or someone you love that is, it's possible to change. You can change. Success is within their reach, or within your reach. So I urge you not to accept that that's just the way it is. I urge you to look at saying, all right, well, let's see what we can do to change and to grow, and to look at, you know, how can things be different, what I would like to have different. So I thank you all, and I hope you believe it is possible to change for the better, and that we only learn through growth, and we only learn through our challenges. So I thank you all for coming on the webinar today. I hope you've learned something, and I hope you can see my nice Mother's Day flowers up there. So I put them up there for everybody to see. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, and flick me an email, because I've ran out of time. And I'm happy to share those books that I mentioned that are amazing tools. Yeah, have an amazing day, and just go and get things done. And yeah, it's amazing what you can achieve. Thank you. See you, everybody, and good luck.